Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today we're going to be doing a Noble Knight deck profiles. I'm really excited for this one because this is a really awesome Xyz based deck that can summon none other than King Arthur himself out to the field, which is a really awesome card in this particular deck. And it also has one of the most powerful in-archetype link monsters in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! In the form of Zold, Two Tails of the Noble Knight. So, without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards like getting your name in the description of every single video, getting a signed card in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month your patron along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Noble Knight Custonin, which is an awesome card for this deck that's basically a free special summon. He has the ability that if you control a Noble Arms equip spell, you can special summon this card from your hand. And you only special summon this card once per turn this way. And a Noble Knight monster that was Synchro, Xyz, or Link summoned using this card gains the following effect: that if this card is special summoned, you can normal summon another Noble Knight monster during your main phase of this turn, in addition to your normal summoner set, which helps you out a lot in this deck to get additional monsters out on your side of the field. We then play 3 copies of Noble Knight Brothers. Noble Knight Brothers is a really good card in this deck as well, because if this card is the only, or this card can only attack if you control exactly 3 Noble Knight monsters and no other monsters, which is a really good effect in a way, but it's really just here as an extender because it has the ability that when this card is normal summon, you can special summon up to 2 Noble Knight monsters from your hand, and also you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except for Noble Knight monsters. And then once per turn, you can target 3 Noble Knight cards in your graveyard or Noble Arms cards in your graveyard and shuffle them into the deck, and then you get to draw a card, which is the really good effect of this card. The only downside to that effect is this card can only attack if you control exactly 3 Noble Knight cards, but you're never really attacking with this card anyways, so it's not that big of a deal. We then play 3 of the Noble Knight with the Lion. This card is really good. He has the ability that if this card, or if a Noble Arms equip spell becomes equipped to this card, you can special summon a Noble Knight token to your side of the field. Warrior, level 4, 1000 attack and 1000 defense, and also you cannot special summon for the rest of the turn except for Noble Knight monsters, and you only effect this card once per turn. And when this card is equipped with a Noble Arms equip spell, all other Noble Knights gain 500 attack. This card is a great card to just give you an additional token so you can go into your copy of Zold, and it's just an overall fantastic card in this deck. We then play 3 copies of Noble Knight Madrat. Noble Knight Madrat is a really good card in this deck because he has the ability that if this card is on your side of the field, it's treated as a normal monster, which actually comes in pretty handy in this deck. He also has the ability that when he's equipped with a Noble Arms equip spell, this card becomes an effect monster with the following effect: that this card becomes a dark monster and its level is increased by 1. You can once per turn, if you control no other monsters, you can special summon a Noble Knight monster from your deck and defense position except another copy of himself, and if you do, destroy a Noble Arms equip spell equipped to this card, which is always going to be a Noble Arms. It says equip spell, but it's always going to be a Noble Arms that you're popping off this card. It's a really fantastic card in this deck because you usually want to use this as your first card out, normal summon it, equip with a card, and then he will drop the sword essentially to the graveyard to activate his effect, but before he does, the monster will be special summoned, and then you can re-equip that card to the monster that he special summons out from the deck, which helps out the deck a lot to go into Link 2s and into Xyz plays. We then play double Gwaine in this deck. Gwaine is really helpful because if you control a light normal monster, you can special summon this card from your hand in defense position, which your copy of Madrat is pretty much a normal monster on normal summon. Another monster that we actually play in the deck that's pretty much a normal monster is our copy of Noble Knight Boar. So you play technically 4 of your normal monsters because this card has the ability, this card is treated as a normal monster while faceable on the field, but when it becomes equipped with a Noble Arms card, it becomes dark and its level is increased by 1. And then during the main phase, you can reveal 3 Noble Arms cards in your deck to have your opponent reveal or randomly pick one of them and add it to your hand, which is a really good effect just to be able to grab an additional equipped spell from your deck, but then you destroy the card that was, or you send the rest to the graveyard, which is not that big of a deal just to send the rest to the graveyard. There's a really good combo with this card that basically you normal summon out the copy of Madrat. It's one of the old school Noble Knight combos that you'll normal summon out the copy of Madrat, use his effect, special summon out Boars, and then equip the copy of the equipped spell that was equipped to the Madrat to the Boars to help out your play. plays a little bit to then get you a search, which is a really good combo for the deck. We then play a single copy of Noble Knight Dristan. Dristan is a really good card as well because when you control another Noble Knight card and your opponent cannot target monsters you control with a less attack than 1800 except this card for attacks or with card effects either, and then when a Noble Arms equip spell is equipped to this card, you can target one face-up card on the field and destroy that card, which is really helpful just to give you additional pops on the field. We then play a single copy of Guinevere, Queen of the Noble Arms. Guinevere is basically an equip spell card with the effect that you can target one Noble Knight monster you control, equip this card from your hand or graveyard to that target, and you only have to use the effect of her once per turn. And the equipped monster gains 300 attack, and then you apply effects depending on if it's a light or a dark monster. If it's a light monster, the equipped monster would be destroyed by a card effect. You can destroy this card instead. But if it's a dark monster, if this equipped monster battles an opponent's monster at the start of the damage step, you can destroy that monster and destroy this card, which is a pretty good effect as well, just to be able to give you a little bit more push in the deck. We then play 2 copies of Morgan, the Enchantress of Avalon. Morgan is a fantastic hand trap in this deck that when your opponent activates a card or effect, we control a Noble Knight and a Noble Arm monster. We control a Noble Knight and a Noble Arm spell card. It has the ability to quick effect, send this card from your hand to the graveyard, destroy one Noble Arms equipped spell you control, and if you do, negate the activation, which is really good just to be able to negate anything by just dropping this card from your hand. You only play it at 2 because you don't want to draw into multiple copies of her because she is a once per turn though. We then play a couple of tech cards, which is a single copy of the Immortal Phoenix Gearfried because it's a fantastic card to search in this deck, and it's a really good boss monster as well because you just have to banish an equip spell to special summon it from your field or graveyard to your side of the field. You special summon this card to your side of the field by banishing any equip spell, which is really good. And then it also can gobble up your opponent's monsters to equip them to this monster to give it additional attack points of about 500, which is a really good effect as well. We then play a single copy of Renaud. Renaud is a really good combo piece in this deck because if you control a fire warrior, you can special summon this card from your hand, but you're usually special summoning this off your copy of your Isolde to then be able to retrieve the equip spell that the copy of the Isolde sent to the graveyard and help you further climb into other link plays. This card is just a really good card in the deck overall. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Reinforcements of the Army because Rhoda is just really good in this deck to be able to add any of your level 4 warrior monsters from your deck to your hand. 1 copy of Monster Reborn because it helps you extend your plays just a little bit in the deck. 1 copy of Called by the Grave because Called by the Grave is a really good card to stop hand traps. 1 copy of Double or Nothing because it's primarily a rank 4 base deck. So what you're going to do with this card is actually overlay into Utopia Double, detach material off the Utopia Double, summon Utopia, search this card, and then once you do, the Utopia comes out at 5,000. You then attack your opponent, drop a copy of the materials off your Utopia to be able to then drop Double or Nothing and swing again for 10,000 attack. And if your monster has less than 2,000 attack and you're successful, you pretty much win the game because that's 8,000 damage. We then play 2 copies of Glory of the Noble Knights. Glory of the Noble Knights is a really good card in this deck as well because it lets you target a Noble Knight monster you control and equip it with 1 equip spell from your deck that the equipped monster can be equipped with, which is really good to be able to just equip them with any of the equipped spells that you have. So this card's really, really good. It's a 2 of. I wouldn't play it at any more than 1 because it is a hard once per turn, but playing it at 2 is really good in this deck. I wouldn't play it at any more than 2. We then play 3 copies of Heritage of the Chalice. This card is a great search card for the deck because it has the ability to add a Noble Knight monster or a Noble Arms card from your deck or graveyard to your hand. And if your Noble Knight monster equipped with a Noble Arms equipped spell is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, when this card's in the graveyard, you can add this card back to your hand, but you can only use 1 Heritage of the Chalice effect per turn, which is still a really good effect just to be able to give you 3 more searchers in the deck because you basically have the Rhoda, the 3 copies of Heritage of the Chalice, and then you also have the 3 copies of Glory of the Noble Knights to also grab you equip spells from the deck. So for the equip spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Clarent. Clarent is a really good card in this deck because the equipped monster, you can only equip it to a warrior monster and you can only control 1 copy of it, but once per turn you can pay 500 life points and the monster that this card is equipped to can attack directly, which is a really good effect. And then the majority of your Noble Knight spell, your Noble Arms spells have the ability that if this face-up card on the field is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can target another warrior Noble Knight monster you control and equip this card to that target. So this card is usually a common effect amongst your equip spells that you can then, if they're destroyed, basically they drop the sword and then another knight picks up the sword because it's basically legendary swords that are wielded through time, which is really cool by different warriors. We then play a single copy of Lancelot's Sword. This card is really good to help you pop cards because you can only control one of it. And the equipped monster, you can be a warrior monster. And then once per turn, you can target a set card your opponent controls, and the equipped monster permanently loses 500 attack. And if it does, you destroy the target, which is pretty good just to be able to pop set cards. You play a single copy of Caliburn. This card is very, very easy. This card basically has the ability that the monster that this card is equipped to gains 500. And then once per turn, you can make your life points go up by 500 as well, which helps out. One copy of Gallatin. Gallatin boosts the equipped monster by 1,000 attack points, but during each standby phase, the monster loses 200 attack points, so you're going to have to kind of win with this card quickly or get it off the monster pretty quickly, because losing 200 every standby phase is not the greatest thing, but it makes a monster really big. We play 2 copies of Noble Arms of Destiny. This card is really good in the deck because it has the ability that you can only control one of it, but once per turn, the equipped monster cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effects, which is a really good effect. 2 copies of Excalibur to round out the spells, and this card is really good to help you rank up in the deck because it has the ability that you can only equip this card to a Noble Knight monster, and it cannot be targeted by opponent's card effects. And then during the turn, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from the graveyard and then target one Noble Knight XZ monster you control, and special summon from your extra deck one Noble Knight XZ monster with a different name by using that XZ monster as a material. And then you can also attach the materials that were attached to that monster to the new monster as well, which is a really good effect just to be able to basically rank up your monsters by banishing this card from the graveyard. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps, because we do actually play 2 traps in this deck, and the 2 traps we're actually playing is 2 copies of Until Noble Arms Are Needed Once Again. I love the name of this card. I love the artwork of this card. It's really, really awesome. I love the way this card actually plays in the deck, and it's a awesome looking secret. This is actually one of my favorite secret rares in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! It's an absolutely gorgeous card, and what this card does is you activate cards off the top of your deck equal to the number of Noble Arms equipped spells you control, which is usually like 4 Noble Arms that you're controlling, and if you do, you get to add one of them to your hand as well that's an equipped spell, which is really good to be able to add any card that you excavate off the top of your deck. Also, you place the remaining cards back on the top of your deck in any order, and then you banish this card from the graveyard except the turn it was sent to the graveyard, and special summon from your deck one Noble Knight monster with a different name from cards you currently control or in your graveyard, which you have a couple of 1-ofs in the deck, so this card is a really good card, especially summon out cards like your copies of your Dristan, your copies of Boars, or other cards like that. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Sacred Noble Knight King Custonin. This card is a really, really good card, and one of the best cards you can actually open plays with, especially if you're going first, because it has the ability you can detach any number of materials on this card, target them any cards your opponent controls, and return them to the hand. And if this card is destroyed by battle or by card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a Noble Knight XZ monster from your extra deck, except another copy of itself. And if you do, attach this card from your graveyard to that monster as a material, which can really helpful. It's really helpful card to open this card in defense position if you're getting pushed to go first, because this card is just really good to help you rank up into your other monsters. We then play 2 copies of the Artorias, the King of the Noble Knights, which is based on King Arthur, which is a awesome card. This card has the ability that when this card is XZ summoned, you can target up to 3 Noble Arms equipped spells with different names in your graveyard and equip those targets to this card. And then once per turn, you can detach material from this card, destroy any number of spells and traps on the field up to the number of Noble Arms equipped spells that you currently control, which is usually going to be at least 3 spells or traps that you can pop with this card. We then play the single best XZ card in the entire deck, which is 2 copies of Sacred Noble Knight of King Artorias. This card is a really, really good boss monster for the deck, and it's going to be the main way that you're going to be winning, because this card is a really awesome boss monster. When this card is XZ summoned, you get to target 3 Noble Arms equipped spells with different names in your graveyard and equip those targets to this card. And then once per turn, you can detach a material from this card to target one other monster on the field and destroy that target. And if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can target 1 level 4 higher Noble Knight monster in your graveyard and special summon that target. So it also replaces itself, and when it drops all the swords when it's destroyed, it special summons the next monster out, which then you can re-equip those swords to the new monster, which helps you out a lot to basically replace the king with another king. We then play a single copy of Utopia Double because it's a great OTK piece in the deck to give you a 10,000 beat stick. Play a single copy of Utopia to lay on top of that Utopia Double to give you a 5,000 attack point monster. Then you can also search Double or Nothing when you make this, and then you attack for 5,000, detach a material, negate the attack, and then drop Double or Nothing for a 10,000 beat stick to basically OTK your opponent. We then play a single copy of Tornado Dragon just to pop spells or traps on the field. This card is really good just to give you additional pops. And then a AA Zeus, because AA Zeus is really good in any XZ based decks. This card is really helpful for the deck to be able to destroy cards on the field. We then play 2 copies of Isolde. Isolde is a really good card in this deck as well because Isolde is going to let you search warriors, send equip spells to the graveyard to basically get more swords in the graveyard to be able to use for your copies of your kings is just really, really helpful. And being able to special summon out monsters from the deck for sending those equip spells is just really, really good. This is arguably one of the best current link monsters in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! We then play a single copy of Appaloosa just to give us additional negates. This could be any link for it. It could be a Boral Sword, it could be a Boral Load, it could be an access code if you want to. I just like playing the Appaloosa to give me additional negates because this deck doesn't have a lot of negates with the forms of the Morgan is the only real one that you have. It's more of a protection based deck. So this card comes in handy every so often when you do need a little bit extra protection. 1 copy of Unicorn because it spins stuff, and then a single copy of Pentastag because Pentastag actually lets us do piercing damage with the monster that it points to, which is really good, especially for our copy of Utopia Double to be able to just do 10,000 piercing damage, or it makes so your copy of your Artorgus can do piercing damage as well. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really good deck to play around with, and it's not a very expensive deck at all to actually pick up because the majority of the stuff has been reprinted a couple of times by now. So it's a fairly budget deck to actually pick up, which is very, very helpful for you guys. And it's a really fun XZ-based deck. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and definitely hit that bell there so you can come part of notifications. Well, we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.